In today's episode, we will learn a bit about NotePlan, process organization, get most powerful productivity insights from the founder, and find out why there is mistreatment of technical founders in startup communities. Hey, Eduard, nice to meet you, and thanks for joining.
Hi, Maxime. Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background and experience?
So I'm by trade, I'm a software developer. Originally I started or I had an apprenticeship in Germany. I didn't study. I wanted to study afterwards, but then I decided to found a startup instead. So and now NotePlan is already my second startup, if you want to call it like this. And yeah, so all my life I was more of a technical or I was doing more of the technical work, and with NotePlan I'm also doing all kinds of work, like also marketing and business development and so on.
You mentioned NotePlan, and let's talk about your product. What is it, briefly, and what is your main market right now?
So NotePlan is a note-taking app for macOS and iOS, and beyond taking notes, you also can manage your tasks. So it's a task manager, and it's integrating with your calendar. On the Apple ecosystem, it's the iCloud calendar, and you can also add Google and Exchange and so on. And you manage your daily life with this app. And you can obviously also do some project management and manage your tasks.
So, and how many users right now in NotePlan?
It's a bit hard to say because I just switched to or just launched NotePlan 3, but usually the monthly users were around 1,000, 2,000 users.
It's nice, yeah. I wanted to talk more about like the previous steps of NotePlan, because it's also always interesting to understand how startups was struggling with the problems. Let's dive deeper more into the times where NotePlan was a little baby. And can you tell our listeners more about your journey with NotePlan? What is the timeline of the product development and when it became profitable for you?
I started developing NotePlan about March 2016 as a side project, mainly to build my own tool because I wasn't satisfied with the existing task managers and note-taking apps. And like a good software developer, you start your own project.
Yeah.
And I did it on the side. It was just for fun, basically, for a couple of hours in the evening. And I developed it for like 7 months and launched it in October 2016, the Mac version on the Mac App Store. But beyond just developing, what the technical people do, they just develop the product. But if you also have an entrepreneurial mindset, you also try to validate it somehow. So I also reached out to bloggers and asked for their advice or asked them if they want to cover NotePlan. And some did. And this is how I got my first beta users. And through their advice, I kept developing it on the site first through 2017, I think. And in 2018, Apple featured the Mac app on the App Store on the banner. So it was quite a prominent feature. It was still the old App Store, but they added NotePlan for about 2 weeks into the first page of the Mac App Store. And this gave me so much revenue and confidence and validation, kind of, so that I could decide to work on it full time. So then about the end of the year and start of 2019, I went full time. Before that, I was also working in my own startup, but it was like co-founded. I was not the original founder. So I decided to, because this was also more fun to me, it was also more riskier, and this was also more fun because it was riskier and I could do more tasks. Like I could speak to users. I didn't just have the technical side, and this was very exciting. So since then, I am now full-time since beginning 2019 until now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And what was the biggest challenge in the beginning?
It was, I think, for me personally, I had the advantage that Apple was featuring NotePlan in the Mac App Store, so I didn't have the problem of marketing too much in the beginning. The first launch was not that successful because it was still small and not very known in the community. The launch was end of 2016, but then in, I think, 2018, Apple featured the app. So it was quite some time. It was still like just a hobby till then. And I don't know if you can call this validation if Apple features the product. Sometimes um, I think it still didn't have a lot of product market fit at that time. So, and the challenge was to find out which features do I need to build.
Mm-hmm.
And this meant I had to talk to users a lot. So this was mainly email, but I also had like interviews with users. So I asked them for a meeting and then talked to them from person to person on a video chat.
Speaking of today, it would be interesting to hear about some of company processes in details. So what is your main focus right now? Like, what is the main thing you're doing?
Yeah, so just recently, my main focus was to switch NotePlan 2 to NotePlan 3. And there were like two things, like the development or the structure of the app itself, like the user interface changed because I learned new things from talking to users. So this was one thing. The whole user interface changed and the features changed or improved. And another one was from the business side. I've switched from a one-time payment to a subscription and also increased the price because obviously the new features were added. So I had to increase the price also because the product was more valuable at the same time. So this was my main focus a short while ago. Now the change is already done. It was last month. And now I need to see if the results are coming in as expected. And my main focus is just to keep going and monitor the results. So right now I'm trying to build in more marketing as the product more matures. So I'm trying to find a workflow or a kind of habit to do some marketing every couple of weeks.
Okay, so you mentioned marketing, and I wanted to ask about marketing and sales processes NotePlan
Yeah.
has. Yeah, so what is this? Can you tell us more details about the marketing process? For example, what traction channels you use and what traction
Yeah, I
channels you
was
tried and failed, for example?
yeah, I was experimenting a bit with NoPlan 2 before, and I tried paid ads, I tried sponsoring, I tried the App Store search ads, and these all paid acquisition channels were not really working for, at least for NoPlan as a product. Maybe it works for other products better, but in my case it didn't. Um, then what I'm trying now is to write content, and specifically, like in this case, productivity content about note-taking methods, for example, Zettelkasten or bullet journaling, because these are also use cases of NoPlan. So I'm trying to make videos, writing blog posts, also writing in the Reddit forums and so on. I think this helps mostly. And then another part, so beside the content creation, another part is that users talk about NoPlan also in other products forums or in general forums. And I want to support this too. So like there is a big community about Obsidian and Rome Research. These are not really competition products, but they cover a similar area that NoPlan also covers. But I've seen if I improve the interoperability between NoPlan and the other apps, like users can use both apps at once, then people also start talking about NoPlan. So this is also one of the paths I can go to grow the app.
The customer base, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, there are a lot of tools like Notion or Todoist, for example, because I personally think that NotePlan is really looks like Todoist, like the project structure, daily notes section, week section with the calendar. So how are you struggling with the competition, and what is really set you apart from the crowd?
Yeah. Yeah, so what is still missing in the competition is a native tool. So NotePlan is completely native, written in Swift for Mac and iOS. Mostly like the other tools, Notion, Obsidian, Roam Research, they are not native. They're either on the web or they are Electron app. And this means they are not on the App Store. They don't have this safe way to buy the app or the subscription. And they don't have the native features like widgets and so on. So this is something where I can stand out. I can improve the product, integrate it better with the Apple ecosystem. Also, NotePlan integrates with iCloud calendars. So this is something not very well covered by other apps. And yeah, this is the strengths I can go deeper also and build kind of mode around it.
Mhm. If we are talking about new product feature introduction, for example, yeah, what is the structure of company decision making? How you're handling customer development, and based on what you
Mm.
decide that feature will be valuable for users? Like,
Mm.
what is the
Okay.
whole workflow of the feature?
Okay. Yeah, I receive quite a lot of feature request emails. A little bit support, I can handle that very easily. But what is overwhelming is the feature requests and suggestions. So there's a lot of that, very constructive emails. And what I've done is I made a small Discord community. This is kind of invite-only Discord community, and I work there with a few very core, hardcore users who who I know when they give me feedback, it's very validated. So I don't need to think about what kind of user this is, because sometimes you maybe have a user who didn't pay yet, or who is not really using the app, and he still writes you an email with suggestions. And then, but if you take this too serious, then you go maybe in the wrong direction with the product. So you really need to see if it's a user who is really using the app every day and would pay for it, so exactly the person you want to have as a user, then these features are very relevant. So that's what I did. I took a couple of users I knew because they wrote me a lot of constructive emails, and then I put them in a group, and now I discuss with them. So this is one way to validate the feature requests. And then I combine it with my own vision and the things which I'm interested in developing or having myself as a user, and decide which features to build, and build them in 2 week sprints usually, and release them in 2 or 3 weeks, basically.
It's really amazing how you were able to build NotePlan solo, because you talked about,
Mm.
um, as I understand, you're a solo, yes, developer.
Yes.
I opened the app, and there are a whole bunch of features that can be compared with the good enterprise app. And the first question that arises in my head was, why the project that started almost 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, yeah,
Mm.
still have one team member.
Mm. It, this has like two reasons. It's still growing, so I'm also switched to subscription model to have more stable revenue, because the one-time payments, they're not really stable. You get maybe a bulk of the revenue in about 2 months, and you need to have big launches. And so one reason is I need to have a more stable revenue, and the other one, I want to stay as independent as possible. So I'm not really aiming for building a big team, or um, like like uh, like these usual startups which you hear about, which grow very fast and so on, with outside capital. So I didn't want to have this. I want to be in it's called the indie hackers community, like the
Mhm.
bootstrapped founders. So I wanted to keep it consciously, I mean, the team small, not the revenue, but so I can also like stay free. Like I can travel wherever I want. I don't have to stay somewhere in an office, and I'm not bound to specific location or specific rules. Like if I would have employees in Germany, for example, I would have to also pay the social security and the taxes for them and take care of these things, which would distract me more and more from actually building the app. So what I enjoy is to talk to users and build the app, and then talk about what I have built in the app. So like talk about the new features, kind of marketing. I like the whole process, and yeah, as I said, I don't want to put myself into some structure where I am not free anymore. So I value my time and being able to choose what I can do more than building a big team or making something too big out of it.
It's a good point, yeah. But how you are handling aspects of product that that's out of your expertise? For example, project management or something like this. You hiring freelancers, or you do it solo?
It depends. If it's like about design, I can handle some of the design work, but I also hire from time to time freelancers. Like for testing, I tried to hire someone, and I hired also multiple times someone for the icon design, because I'm not really good in icon design. So the initial icon looked very different, but this was also hired. And the second, I paid about $1,000 to get my icon, and I can also do the design work. It's just I'm not so good in some parts, and as you said, then there I hire people. Or for taxes, I hired someone, obviously. What else? Project management I'm doing myself in this case. I've switched to a new method where I only use NotePlan. Marketing, I try to work with other people, but usually it boils down to paid acquisition, or I need to pay someone to write the content. But I feel if I pay someone to write some generic content, it's maybe not so effective. So I try to write content myself now about things which I care about. So like the new method which I use for NotePlan to manage my projects in there, I care a lot about it. It's very interesting to me. So it comes very easy to write a blog post on this, and it fits to the community and to the users who want to use NotePlan and so on. So it all comes together somehow.
Finishing the topic about the team, yeah. In your opinion, when the product needs to start build a team, and what is the main roles you need to fill first in the startup? You're talking about like the solo experience, but in some time, startup will grow to the stage where you cannot do everything solo. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I worked before that also in another startup where I was a co-founder. There we had a team, and you obviously need the developers, then also some people for the quality assurance, so people would test the product, maybe build unit tests. So ideally, these would be also developers, so they can build unit tests to test the product. In my case, I also test, but I test before, like 2 days before releasing, and then fix critical bugs before that. But it's like someone else could also do this very easily. And another third part could be the design, obviously. Like often developers, they know how to build the code and algorithms, but they don't have a taste for how to make it look good and how to make it behave as simple as possible. So there you could have like a visual designer and a UX designer. So these two parts, so making it look good and making it behave in a way which is easy to understand. Maybe someone for copywriting, but this is not something you need very often. But you have text in the software, like for the paywall, for example, to explain the different plans, to explain the process, or to explain features inside the app. So there it would be useful to have someone who knows how to write something in a very easy to understand way. Yeah, so if I would say these kind of roles are important.
Okay, so developers and the copywriters, yes, and design guys, yeah.
And someone to test, yeah.
Yeah, and someone to test. As we are talking about more human topic, like the team relationship, Could you tell me more about yourself as a solo founder of productivity tool who needs to take
Mhm.
control every aspect of the business? It would be amazing to hear some productivity tips that
Oh,
helps you
okay.
throughout your day. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the main things or tweaks in productivity I use is batching things together. So means on having a like a daily process kind of. So when I start my day, I usually check for emails, and I take like 1 or 2 hours just to reply to emails. I don't do anything else in that time, and I focus first on the support emails, which are very urgent. So somebody needs some help to get going in the product. And then there are like not so urgent, but important emails, like the feature requests, and I process them as well. But I keep it capped for maybe maximum 2 hours. Otherwise, it takes up too much time. And I read if it's a feature request, I read it and make a note about it in NotePlan in my inbox folder, so I don't forget about the feature request. If it's something which is not already in my notes, then I add it to my inbox folder. So one thing is batching, and then after this, I start coding. So like maybe before lunch, after lunch, I start with the programming part. I code there, and I do this mostly for the rest of the day. And I work in 2 week sprints. So if I have some marketing work scheduled, and this is what I try to establish now, is that I have for every sprint, for every those 2 weeks, I have one task where I do some marketing work. Mostly this means producing some content. And at the beginning, I like writing an article. I try to do this at the beginning of the sprint because it's the work is a little bit easier and more. I don't need to focus too much like in coding and keep lots of variables in my head. So I just do the content creation part in the beginning once I'm done, and then I start with the coding part. So I try to keep the tasks apart. I try to keep the switching as I don't switch too much between tasks. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
Okay. I think you know about getting things done methodology because NotePlan
Yeah.
in some sort of implements this. And everyone has its own adaptation and tips how to apply it.
Mm.
But how you personally organizing big amount of tasks, for example, in development, in marketing, and yeah, you said about the sprints, but I'm more interested about organizing the bunch of tasks and establishing deadlines. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So time frames is obviously 2 weeks, but I don't keep it too strict because it doesn't make sense if I have a artificial deadline and then need to reduce the quality just to meet it. So if I have basically this 2 week deadline, but if a feature is just not done, I try to, and it doesn't make sense to release anything because there's nothing new. So I also keep developing a few days after, but I try not to stress too much on this, otherwise the quality goes down. And otherwise the process, if you talk about GTD, is so my input are usually the emails. Anything I read, I try to put into an inbox folder. This is one of the GTD
Yeah, yeah.
workflows. So I also try not to write or keep this also separate, like just first put everything in the inbox. So you do the capturing part separately from the processing part. Once I have captured it, I take time to process my inbox. And this is mostly like 80% is feature requests. And then I process these feature requests into my other nodes. And the note taking system I just switched to is called Zettelkasten. And there you have atomic nodes, very short atomic nodes. And this means the node contains one idea. And in my case, often one idea for a feature request or one idea how to develop the feature. So I keep developing it. And what's also currently very popular in Zettelkasten community and in the other apps which are similar to NotePlan is backlinking. So you link your nodes together in a way that you can basically browse through them like on a website or on the internet. You click on the link and you browse to the next node, and you can click on the backlink and browse back. So this is basically how our brain also works. We connect ideas with each other, and you have like lines of thoughts. And I use this to develop the features and develop marketing ideas and so on. So I keep developing them like every day, and then I see something is very interesting. I have a lot of nodes around this are clustered. So then I decide, okay, this is something probably worth doing. And then I put it into a separate folder. I make a new node, which is like for the, in my backlog, you can call it a backlog folder. Interesting things I want to do next. And then when the 2-week sprint starts, I do the planning and I pick the ones I want to achieve in those 2 weeks. And then, but at this point, I already have developed the feature or the ideas on paper, like 80%. I just need to put everything together now and then do the actual work. So this is my productivity process at the moment.
Yeah, it looks great. And one more aspect of productivity is motivation. Yeah. And what is the one thing that helps you get up with when everything is going not as expected?
Okay, this is also when I was reading on Zettelkasten, I came across an interesting thing. So the inventor of Zettelkasten, he said he's only doing the things he's interested in. And obviously you can't do this always in business. You could maybe do this in academic work, but in business you also sometimes need to do things you're not so excited about. But if you try to keep working on the things you're very interested in, it's very easy. You don't need motivation because it's very easy for you to do things you enjoy. I try to find an overlap. So I try to look, okay, this is something I really like to do, and it benefits the business, and I maybe gain more users with this and so on. So something which is overlapping with all things. And if you are independent, you also have more freedom to choose to do the things you're very interested in. So I don't need much motivation because it's already built in. And yeah, otherwise, building up a habit of developing every day, reading emails every day, then you don't also need much willpower or motivation to keep going, because it's just your thing. You just do it,
But if you have, for example, like the side job, it's really hard to motivate yourself to do your project because you're tired. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think because I have built this kind of habit of coding on it every day, I feel bad if I don't make any progress on a given day. So I try. So even if I am not very motivated, I still try to do something which is productive. I think for me, basically, it's a habit at this point. So I don't need much motivation, but I'm also choosing tasks which are very interesting to me. So there's like rarely a moment where I'm too tired, or yeah, if you're too tired, I maybe take also a break. Like I try not to work for a day or just work for a few hours.
Yeah, you said a great thing. Like, and the daily progress is a motivation in some sort. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's great idea. Yeah, and I want to bring up one interesting opinion that is popular in startup community, and that I wrote you on in the mail. Yeah, I think there is an idea in the community that tech guys cannot run a business. And what do you think about it, and why this opinion exists in the community?
Yeah, I had this encounter with business/marketing people who I think there are a lot of people who try to take advantage of developers. They build a nice product and then they want to put in money and through maybe paid acquisition get a lot of money out of it. But in my experience, this doesn't work mostly because I tried it myself. I mean, I didn't put too much money into the paid acquisition channels, but I saw they don't work. Probably they don't work for most products, but some maybe works. I don't have much experience on this specifically. Yeah, it depends. You need to, as a technical founder, you also have other interests. You can enjoy design, you can enjoy writing articles and so on, and you can also enjoy thinking about business. But I think there's this stereotype of people sitting in the dark and just coding all day and not being interested into other things. But I think it's not true. There are a lot of people who like to do the all-around tasks, and yeah, I would say don't listen to the marketing people too much. They
Yeah.
sometimes it's more important to build a good product than to do. I mean, people need to know about the product, but people also start talking about it if you build a really good product. I know it's not working if you just upload it somewhere and then hope somebody sees it. You need to do something to bring it in front of people. But this doesn't mean you need to be a salesperson or need to be very good in marketing. It just means you need to write about it and show it to people. And if it's a really, really good product, people start to talk about it. Then you have the word of mouth. And if you want to have good marketing or marketing which works, you first need to have a good product in most cases. Otherwise, you get a lot of eyeballs, but then nobody buys it. Is the problem.
Yeah. And speaking of technical people, in your opinion, what are the skills they need to develop in the first place to build valuable products and companies?
Yeah, it's important to customer development to keep talking to users. This doesn't mean you need to talk in person. It means like through messages on Reddit, on email, and so on, and try to understand what they say, ask questions back, build something, show them and ask them if this is what they want, and so on. So listening and talking works a lot, but you should also have your own vision. Obviously, you should have experience with many apps in this area because you get lots of ideas. You see what is the kind of standard of quality in your field. You can also see or get a good sense if you try out other apps, for example. They have, for example, the very good ones on the App Store. You already get a good feel of what people want. If somebody, for example, if somebody asks me for a feature request and don't quite understand it, mostly it's a feature in some other app, and then I know what they mean. And if I usually keep asking them what they try to use it for, what is their workflow, how does it look like, so I understand why they are asking this. And then if you read enough emails, you get a sense of what people actually want.